Hey everyone, it's AC from the Lexical team. Today, continuing our video series about how to set up Lexical and React, how to actually create an editor with those tools. I thought we would dive a little bit into how to do some deeper customization, specifically how to create your own nodes and how to deal with node classes and things like that. We've talked a lot about like how to kind of wire up the pieces that are there for you out of the box of Lexical, like plugins and commands and how to connect it to the UI. But we haven't talked a lot about like how to go maybe one layer deeper and start doing things that you might want to do that are a little more custom and specific to your whatever business use cases you have. So today I thought we would try doing something like creating a custom node, something simple like a banner node that has maybe like a a color and a background color and like a you can type inside of it and almost like a block quote, but a little more just styled differently. So let's dive into that. Cool. So the first thing I actually wanted to do before we get too far here is I was thinking about reorganizing our code a bit since we kind of have a toolbar now, which is pretty distinct from everything else that we have here. And so I think I'm just going to move all of this somewhere else. And then we'll start kind of working to expand our toolbar from there. So we have glyph toolbar. Let's create a file in there. Let's call it toolbar. And we can paste all the stuff that we just copied, and we should probably import React. And some other things. Range selection, set blocks type experimental. Let's try range selection again. Is range selection. Yeah, okay. Second one works. Create heading node. What else? Insert order list. Unordered list. Is that everything? Get selection. Looks like we're good there now. So then let's bring toolbar into there. So now we have kind of a better separation of concerns there where the toolbar is all in one place. And we might need some of this later in here, but we can always re-import it. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up. We won't need this, won't need this. Okay, cool. So now we have a little more, the editor looks a little more clean. We have all of the information about our toolbar. Or all of our toolbar code is in the the toolbar plugin, and we should probably set up some path aliases eventually to not have to do relatives, but that's not bad for now. So we will kind of move on from there. So if we wanted to add a something like I talked about before, like a banner node or a colored block quote node, that would be a specific, like a new type of node, right? We don't really have, we don't have that. We actually probably could reuse the quote node from Lexical. We do have quote node in Lexical. You could probably style that to meet your needs. But just for the sake of kind of going through the sort of the motions here and demonstrating how to extend nodes, we'll go ahead and create our own. So the first thing we want to do is probably create our own node. Let's see what the best way, how to organize this. Let's go maybe under editor. Let's try plugins. I'm thinking we'll just like nest all of our all of the logic that's related to like our extensions to the editor in this plugins folder. So let's add a folder in here called banner. We'll call it a banner. And then inside banner, we'll do like generic plugin dot tsx. And so this can kind of contain our, this will contain all of our plugin logic, right? And everything that we need to actually create the functionality that we're after. So are we doing single quotes in here? Probably. Cool. Right. So we don't actually need React yet, but the first thing we want to talk about is how to add like a new node type to Lexical. And so our banner node is going to be a node that's going to be able to contain other text, give it a background color, and some like kind of styles around it, right? And so we want it to be able to contain children, essentially, right? So that means it's going to be an element node. There are a few different types of nodes in Lexical that you can extend. One is text node, one is element node, and one is decorator node, which we'll talk more about decorators in depth later. Text nodes should be pretty self-explanatory, but there is a lot of complexity there that we might dive into in a future video. But for purposes of this conversation, we're going to deal with element node. And the reason we're going to pick element node is because element nodes, the main distinguishing feature of those is they have children. So text nodes can have children, decorator nodes don't have children, except in the case sort of nested editors, which is a little more complicated. But still, they don't really have children in the lexical tree. So element nodes are the one you need to pick if you want a node that's going to have other nodes as children in the lexical state. And so we're going to go with element node. So we can just basically create a class. And we're going to have to export it because we're going to have to like register it eventually. We kind of covered registration in the last video if you didn't watch that. And we're going to extend element node. Need to get into a better typing position here. Element. All right, cool. So we have element node from Lexical. We're extending that. A few methods we need to implement here. First, we're going to need a constructor. Then we're going to need a clone method. That's going to be static. And then this looks like a node, which will be a banner node. Return a banner node. I'm not sure if the types on that are exactly right. I might have to fix that later. But yeah, so we'll have a constructor and we'll have, let's see, clone, return, new banner node, key. And then we'll have, so create DOM is an important method. This is what is going to end up telling, this is what tells Lexical what kind of, how to represent your node in the DOM. I spelled it wrong. Wow. So this gets an argument, which is config, and that is the editor config in Lexical. And so, and I can't remember what this returns off the top of my head. I think it's HTML element. And TypeScript will hopefully tell me if I'm wrong. I think that's right. Let's go check out, can we check out element node? Oh, actually it's gonna be on lexical node. So we'll go down a level to create DOM. Yeah, returns an HTML element. It actually has two arguments. So config and it gives the reference to the editor as well. But we won't need that, I don't think, for this. So, oh yeah, this can take optionally the key, should be a number. Or actually, you can type it like that. Right, and we need to call super. Thank you, TypeScript. Or ESLint, whoever that was. 4 spaces but found 8. Okay. Not really sure. What the problem is there. I guess I need to mess with my indent settings. Padded by blank lines. Okay, something's seriously wrong with my lint setup in here. But that's okay. We'll plug on. So we can, yes, you're right about that. Import type. We'll only need these as types. Should be auto fixable, but so we won't need those there. Right. So I guess all of this stuff is expecting. Anyway, so yeah, once like I was saying, create DOM is going to determine how Lexical represents your node in the DOM, and so for us, I think we'll probably just use a plain div for this, and then we can style it kind of however we want. So that's what I'm thinking now. The only thing I'm concerned about a bit there is like kind of the semantics, but we'll have to the semantics of like how you would convert it to HTML, how you would convert it back, but we can deal with that later. So let's say element equals document create element, and we'll create a div. Simple. And then we are going to want to ultimately return that. I'm just doing this first mostly because I get annoyed by TypeScript with red lines everywhere. But then like you're going to want to do, you're going to want to add like a class name to this element so we can style it, right? And so that's where the config kind of comes in. So we can take a class from the config and add it to an element. Add it to our element, so then Lexical will apply that class from our theme, which is in the initial editor config, to the element, and so that's how it kind of all ties together. And let's see if I can remember. I guess I think we just need the one. So we have a helper utility, but I like add class names to element. Add class. I thought we did. We should be able to just do this. Theme. So we can really do whatever we want here, right? Like the theme's extensible, so let's call it banner. So whatever's in the banner, we should be setting that as the element class name. And so that is pretty much it for create DOM. So super simple here. When Lexical encounters this node in the Lexical tree, and when it's rendering the editor to the DOM, it's going to render a div element, and it's going to add this class name to it. So whatever class name we associate with the key banner in our theme, and that's pretty much it. So update DOM, we have to declare that as well. We don't really need that for anything here. We're just going to return false. You would need this if you were like, if you wanted to Lexical to explicitly like unmount and remount the DOM node, which you do need in some cases where things change. We give the previous node and the new node in here, so you can kind of make that determination. But for this, I don't think that there's ever going to be a time we need to do it. So we actually are not going to define this, and we're just going to delegate to the superclass, which just returns false and says no need to update. So we don't need to worry about that. There are a couple other methods you would normally need to implement. I'm gonna like export JSON, import JSON, export DOM, import DOM to like make copy and paste and like HTML serialization, deserialization work. I'm not gonna mess with those right now. I think this is all we need to get started. And then we can talk about adding a few other things that are gonna change the behavior of the node a little bit as we go on. So for now, I'm gonna keep it really simple and just do this. I think this should work fine. let's pass that through. Okay, fine, but like it is a useless constructor right now technically, but we'll probably, we could change this later. So let's leave it in place for now. So right, so we have this banner node, right? And so the next thing we would want to do here is probably create our React, like our actual plugin, which is gonna add support for inserting the banner node into the editor. And the way we'd probably want to do that is let's think here for a sec. I would say we'll wire up a command. I don't think this is like strictly necessary in this case. So we can do the same thing with the heading node and just like directly create it when we press the button. But this is kind of a good way to show like how you might want to set up the command listeners so that you could actually kind of decouple the UI from the actual node plugin itself. And so let's try that. Oh, one thing I forgot actually. Conventionally, nodes do export creator functions from their module. So you would do something like, so it looks like create banner node like that. And of course that's going to return a banner node. This is just a lexical convention. Sorry, this is a function. And we kind of like this abstraction right now allows us to do, we don't let you call, I mean, you can call the constructor directly, theoretically, of these nodes, but we use these creator functions as a convention because it gives us kind of an abstraction, a place to do some interesting things in the node creation process, one of which we added recently, which was called override. The whole overrides API is kind of contingent on these creator functions at this point because the overriding actually happens inside the creators. And so kind of gives us the space to do some things like that. You could also kind of decide like which properties you might want to pass through in these creators or whatever, which you could probably do with a constructor as well. But this is our convention at the moment. There's actually one more that I'll show you after this. So we usually have a create banner node, and this will just, in this case, our case is going to be really simple. It's just going to return this. Super simple. And then we will also, the other convention we have, you may not need this, and it's okay if you don't. You don't have to define it. But in some cases, it is useful to have. And so I forgot how you actually do this in TypeScript. I have to look at another node. If I go look at like element node, let's see. Is element node, oh yeah, okay. So I was trying to remember how you did these like predicates that check. So you do basically this. So it's a lexical node. And you return node is banner node, effectively. And so this is just setting up like a type guard, basically. And so you can say, typically it looks something like this. Whoops, there's supposed to be a space there. And lexical node. There you go. Right, and so those are just by convention. Once again, we might not even need this right now, but when you're setting up new nodes, like typically this is the way we would do things. But once again, like if you're not using it, I mean, be smart. If you don't need it, then there's no need to put it in there. But if you do end up needing this functionality, this is conventionally where we typically house that. And so, yeah, back to the plugin. So if we do export function, this will be an actual plugin. So we'll do banner plugin. And this is going to be a React component. And so this will return JSX element. And then here we would return, probably we don't need to return anything here, honestly, because we'll have a separate like toolbar UI for triggering this command. What we are going to do is get the composer context. So we would do that. And then inside here, we register a command. And the command we would need to create. And the type would be something like, let's do insert banner. And that should be all we need there. I actually priority, right? So let's make this listener run at priority. Let's just do normal. So like, what should you pick there, right? If we look at like command priority, editor's the lowest priority. And so that's like all the things that are built into the editor. Most of the things that are built into the editor. And so if you want to override something, you don't want to pick command priority editor. That's the one that we reserved and it's the lowest one. So then if you want to override functionality like intercept commands and determine, override their behavior, then you'd want to pick one of these. So like low is going to override editor stuff, but obviously like you can pretty much, I'm not a super big fan of like not having just like numbers associated with this because it's, the relative, like the semantics are not crystal clear, but it's pretty clear. So you have low, normal, high, critical. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but like one could argue that, maybe it could be clearer, right? Numbers, for instance, would be clear, but this is what we have for now. So let's go command priority low. We're not overriding any commands since we're the only one using this command that I know of right now. And we could actually kind of like, if we wanted to make it so that other people could override this, we could do export insert banner command. And then we just do that. And then here, we pass that in there. And then other people could, of course, constant. So other people can import this command and then use that to override. Man, this indentation is really annoying. Can use that to override your command. And so we're going to make this, register this command. What's it going to do? It's going to take, we're going to do something really similar to what we're doing in heading node, right? So we'll say, because what we want to do is we ultimately want to take, like this is going to be an element, it's going to have children. We're going to take whatever text is selected and convert it into one of these nodes is basically what we want to do, right? And so we'll do something really similar to what we did in heading node, which is where we got the selection. Right? And then, if is range selection, then oh yeah, this has to return a Boolean, that's fine. We'll get to that. So if range selection, so if it's a range selection, then we can do set block types, and we'll pass in our selection, and we'll pass in the element creator, which really can probably just be create banner node. And this is mega annoying to me. Right. This is actually just going to return. No. And this needs to return a Boolean. And so the Boolean determines whether or not this command can propagate to lower priority listeners. It's sort of like event listeners in the DOM if you're used to that model. And so what we want to do here is say, like, if we've handled this, we probably don't want it to typically what you want to do is like the reason you would use something like this is you would return if you're overriding a command and like coming in at a higher priority and like handling the command, In some cases, you wouldn't want other command handlers to run because you're trying to override them. So you might have something like, if this condition is true, then do this thing, and then return true to stop propagation to other command listeners, right? Otherwise, return false, and just let it propagate to other command listeners. In this case, we probably don't want other command listeners to handle it anyway, and so we'll just probably return true here. So we're not going to let this propagate any further. And so we've registered this command, right? We have this command. And actually, like, now that I'm thinking about this, you have to do it this way. You need to export this instead of doing a create command in here, because you're going to eventually dispatch the command, right, in order to trigger this listener. And that's what we'll be doing in our button that we add to the toolbar. And so, yeah, it's really not, you can't just pass a create command in here unless there'd be no reason to do that, because you need to reference the command at least in one other place to dispatch it. Otherwise, like, what's the point, right? And so you have this banner plugin. So what we have, we're registering this command. Anytime this command is dispatched, this function will run, assuming it's at the right priority level, nothing else intercepts it, which it won't, because we created this. And then it'll run this logic. We'll get the selection. If it's a range selection, then we'll try to set blocks type, and we'll use this create banner node to try to wrap the selected text in our banner. And so let's see, that's pretty much all we need here. I didn't remember importing this. Cool. I guess we only need this if we do like JSXI element or null. So maybe we don't need this. So that should be fine. And then the next thing we would do is probably, we need to do two things to like kind of connect the logic that we set up here, right? Or let's say three things. First, we need to register our node on the editor. Second of all, we need to add our theme class, banner, so that the class actually gets applied to the element, the div element that we're creating. And third, we need to like call our command or dispatch this command somewhere so that this command gets triggered when the user presses some button or whatever, right? So those are the three things we have left to do, which reminds me of one thing. It's kind of good practice in these plugins to do something like this if it depends on a specific type of node. So you would assert basically that the nodes that you need exist, and if not, this will throw a console error in development, so people will know like, oh, I should need to add this node type. So this depends on banner node, right? Because the creator is going to call the banner node constructor. So pass that in there, and then that just is like an assertion, right? That the editor has these nodes, and if it doesn't, then it'll throw an error. We can actually look at the implementation of that. Can we look at the implementation of that? Lexical is probably in here somewhere. Oops, searching in the wrong place. Yeah, so right here, it just goes through all the nodes and make sure, oh, this actually returns a Boolean. It doesn't actually invariant on this, so we'll need to do that ourselves. This is just a Boolean. So yeah, so the best practice is actually going to be to, like, if we look at something like list plugin, dev.js. So we're doing something like this, right? We actually throw if those things don't exist. So we can actually just copy this, and we put that in the plugin, so you know right away when you register the plugin. Whoops. Where am I? You can say whatever you want, right? You can say banner plugin, banner node, not registered on editor. Yeah, and so that just that should prevent you, or throw that console error, and then you'll be able to you'll know, hey, I need to throw a banner node into the editor config. So that's good practice there. So then super annoying to me. Let's get rid of it for now. Do I still have a single? Oh. Okay, fine. Just get rid of it altogether. Add it back if I need it. Okay, cool. So then let's go over to our editor and do the things that we need to do to set it up, right? So one thing is our banner plugin. So let's add that to the children of the composer. And so that's going to activate the plugin. And then we're going to register the node that we talked about, that we created. So we've got to pull that in. And then we need to, what was the other thing that I said? We got to wire up the UI, of course, right? So we will go over to, let's say, our toolbar. And so far we have list toolbar plugin, heading toolbar plugin. We can add one more, right? And I'll probably break these out into like more separate files or something later, but for now we'll kind of keep rolling. Okay. Oh yeah, we need to add the class to the theme. So banner toolbar plugin, right? So all this one's more like list plugin in the sense that you don't really need to, like we're doing this set blocks part in the plugin itself. So we just register a command, right? So all we need to do here is dispatch the command. We're probably going to return a button. In fact, it'll be really similar to this. So I'm going to snag it. The only difference is we don't really care about tags right now. And we're just going to dispatch this command. And the command, and we don't need this map. Don't care about that. This is going to return JSX element. We just need this, that, no key necessary. And this will say something like banner. And let's add it to our toolbar, of course. Why are my breakpoints on? Must be something I forgot to turn off last time. Is there like a debugger tape in here or something? Get rid of all these. Let's remove all breakpoints. Okay. Oh, right, I forgot to add get type. So that's a critical one. Sorry, I forgot about that. So let's close these out, but nodes need a type. Every node has to have a type. And so if we go to, let me close some of these extraneous things out. Back to our banner plugin. We need a get type function. And I believe it's an instance method as opposed to a static method. And this needs to return a string. And the string is going to be, you can make this up, it just can't conflict with anything. So if you're not sure, if you're going to make like, something like paragraph, you might want to make like, my cool paragraph or like, whatever. You need to distinguish it somehow. It needs to not collide with other names that might be there in the editor. So that should, let me just double check that doesn't need to be a static method. If we go to element node, sorry, it's on Lexical node. It is static, of course it is, because we need to call that when we initialize. So let's go back here. Static. Happy? Maybe? Cool. And so then we just need to add the banner plugin, banner toolbar plugin. Not banner plugin. Did we import that? Let's not import that. Don't need that. So now we have our banner button. Looks pretty sweet. Not the right level of indent. Cool. So now we have our banner button coming up, and so we should see this give us similar behavior. Oh, we need to style it. Let's see. Well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and style it so we can see the difference. So if we go to editor, and we add, oh sorry, we don't need an object here, just a class name, right? So we would say glyph, editor, banner. That's it. Go to our styles.css, glyph, editor, banner. And then we want to say something like, maybe let's say background color, blue violet. Wow, okay, that's a cool one. Let's do blue violet. And let's do like, let's put some margin on the top and bottom. Always forget. Let's go, I don't know, 8 pixels. Always forget the shorthand is top, bottom, then left, right, or if bottom is, okay, but this doesn't really tell me. Yeah, whatever, okay. We'll figure it out, trial and error. Right, so hopefully this works. Let's see. Hello world. That still works, that's good. That's good, good. OL, UL, banner, not working. What have we done wrong with our banner? Let's try it. Wait, why did it insert a list node? It's pretty weird. All right, let me try it fresh and see if there's something about the interaction with lists. Weird. For some reason, this inserted an unordered list. Why would it do that? Did I copy something? Oh, I bet I copied something wrong in here. Of course I did. Okay, let's try to get that right. How about insert banner command instead of insert unordered list command? Sweet. Okay, let's try that one more time. Cool. That looks pretty sweet. That's basically what I was expecting. I think the margin, I did get the margins backwards, so let's go to our styles and switch that around and go 0 APX. Is that what I wanted? Oh, no, I'm just an idiot. You can't just give it one value and expect it to know what to do with it. Yeah, so you have that. And then, so we're just giving it a little padding maybe. Let's do left, right on that one. So we'll do 4 pixels of padding. That should be inside the text. Did I mess that up too? You guys can tell I don't write a ton of like plain CSS. Am I even seeing the padding? Oh, that's left, right. That is what I want. Let's go 8. I actually think I want that all around. So you guys can watch me style this little banner thing if you want, but maybe I'll do like back, maybe I'll change this to be, what is this like? This is 138, this is a cool feature. 138, 43, 226. 138, 43, 226. I get that right? Ish. And then let's make the alpha like that. So we get kind of a like a translucent background. And then we can add a border left. Let's go like 4 pixels solid. I'm going to use this same RGB value, except let's go, I don't really need an alpha, I'll just go 1 for the alpha. Cool, that's pretty much exactly what I'm looking for. And so I should be able to like type in here. Okay, it doesn't like that I'm not extending update DOM. So I can go here and just do, there should be no need to update the DOM. You would want to update the, call it if it's like a condition of some sort where you would change what's rendered, like different classes or something like that will be applied in different, based on like a property value or something, but that's not the case for us. So we could even type this as false, like we don't need this at all. So let's try that again. So we go hello world. Let's change it into a banner. Like that, looks good. Go to new lines in this. How do we escape from it? That's an interesting one, right? You probably would need to have some additional functionality in here to like escape from the banner. Because right now, like maybe it's like if you hit enter twice, right, you escape from the banner without entering text. Because like right now, you're kind of stuck in this unless you, maybe even if you click down here, you're stuck, right? And so we probably want to improve that. And I can't think off the top of my head how to do that. I mean, I'm sure I could figure it out, but this video has already gotten to be long enough. Another thing is, if you kind of hit, you would expect if you hit like backspace at the beginning, you would be able to delete this thing, right? Like, let's say we get rid of all this, and you can't delete it. So like, I can actually pretty quickly should be able to show how you would do something like that. So there's a method called collapse at start, and this is basically governing what happens when you what happens when you actually hit backspace, essentially, or like when you delete at the beginning of a node, an element node. And so in this case, we want to make it probably like, we could just make it disappear, and that'd be pretty simple, but it's going to lead to some other problems. So we could just, I think we could just do something as simple as this, and that might just work. It doesn't work. So let me remember how this, what's the element node doing? Lexical element node, let's go dev.js. All right, cool. So what's collapse at start doing by default? Actually, instead of searching for this, let's just search for collapse at start. Oh. Return false. Oh, so I bet what we probably want to do here is actually, we could go look at what some other like node type does. But I think what we're going to want to do here is basically convert it to a paragraph node. And so what you would do in that case is like, let's see how this is handled by like, what's another good example of a node? How about heading node? If I can find, that's in rich text probably. Let's see if we can go to toolbar, create heading node. Heading node's in here somewhere. Right, so this is the collapse at start, I believe, for heading node. This is quote node. Okay, this is probably even more relevant, right? So what is it doing? Create a paragraph node, get the children of this node, append them all to the paragraph node, replace this with the paragraph. Okay, so you got to be a little more specific. I thought we had it so you could just there was some default behavior where if you just return true, that it would take care of that for you, but I was obviously wrong about that. So in this case, we'll have to do something really similar to quote node. So we need to basically tell Lexical what we want to happen in this case. So we can do something really similar to quote node, right? Which is basically we'll create a paragraph node, we'll take all this node's children and transfer it over to the paragraph node and then replace this with the paragraph. And so you don't have any kind of like data loss or anything. It's just moving over to the other thing. And we don't need this selection param. And we can, let's see if that works. So I'm gonna refresh this just in case. Banner. Cool. Yeah, so we're in business now. So if we get rid of that, we can do that. If we just do an empty banner, we can do that. So it doesn't help us with that part, but I'll leave that for a future video, I think. We will we'll kind of cut this one off there. So pretty straightforward. Actually, you know what? Let's see if we can figure that other piece out too, because I have a feeling it's going to work really similar to quote node. So if we go in here and I think it's, if I remember right, it's insert new after. And I just happened to see that on the last thing, which gave me a little more confidence that we could probably sort this out. So create a paragraph node, start insert after, new block. But I'm concerned that there's actually logic written into the core to deal with when you hit enter. When you hit enter in these things twice, and we'd need to make our node also do that. So let's see, where is insert new after actually called? Not in here. Let's say, I'm curious now. Oh, I'm not, here we go. Oh, an insert paragraph, right. Interesting. That makes sense. So when we hit the enter key, usually what happens is insert paragraph gets called. If you're inside a text node, some different stuff happens. Otherwise, we do this, and then you end up calling insert new after here. If we're at the beginning of the current element, the new element is before the current element. Okay, well, I don't want to drag this out with kind of parsing through all this, but it should be pretty straightforward. I don't think it's super complicated to add it. I'm just going to try something like we're doing in quote node. See if that works. Quote node. Oh, that's in rich text. So let's just do something really similar to this. Same thing even. I'm gonna refresh this. So let's turn that into a banner. Cool. So that makes it so, okay, so basically what we've done here is hitting enter will just escape you from it. And this actually makes a lot more sense now. I think we have special handling in code node and some other things so that hitting enter by itself doesn't actually escape you from it. Just that's a more of an expected behavior, and we could probably add that here too as well. In this case, you know what? One thing we can do is if you just hit if I hit shift and enter, then I can add new lines all day and make this as big as I want. But if I just hit enter, then it escapes, right? And really, it's kind of like this isn't like there's no one right way to do this from a UX standpoint. For different nodes, people have different expectations about like how, what user behavior should break you out of a block, and what user behavior should, just insert things. And so like very much up to you. We tried to provide the tools to make it so you could do it. I mean, even with what we're doing here, right? You could actually detect like, hey, do I already have an empty paragraph above where I am now? And if so, then then break out. Otherwise, keep adding paragraphs, right? And so different ways to do it. And we can maybe dive a little deeper into this in like a future video, and talk a little bit more about like the node behavior heuristics, like insert new after, insert after, collapse at start, so on and so forth, and kind of take it from there. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.